Okay. Okay, so I apologize. Alright, I'm just gonna get started. I apologize for the late video, not that anyone cares, but the last time I made a video was around March, April, May. Around that time, I had just finished book 2, started book 3 of Sword of True series. It is now October, right? But I have finished both 3 and 4. Right, yeah, both 3 and 4 of the series. And I know previous video I said I was going to annotate, bookmark, and write down what my thoughts were with the books because I do have a lot of opinions. And in true fashion, I only marked a single page of book 3 and nothing on book 4, which I reread this page. I don't know why I marked it, but there's nothing in here and there's nothing in here. But I just finished this book about 2.5 days ago, so some of this stuff is really fresh. This book, unfortunately, I could not tell you. But where I left off last time, okay, so I'm gonna get started, right? I'm gonna be all over the place because I don't really remember all that well, but I told myself I'm only gonna give myself around 30 minutes. So if I don't get done with the books at that time, then I'm just gonna cut myself off because all I do is ramble anyway. So, end of book 2, I remember Towers of Perdition. He brought all of that stuff down. He's a war wizard. Book 3 starts Blood of the Fold. All right. So the Dream Walker. Okay, so before I get started on book 3, I just want to say real quickly, I don't know if I mentioned this in the previous video, but really, like, creating a dream walker, I can control your mind, whatever. I can visit your dreams and control the entire world, basically. And he's a single person, right? Apparently there was a whole bunch of these back then. I think what was really interesting, though, Kaylin and Richard, like, unfolding, like, all of the history and, like, all of the magic that happened before theirs, which was the war wizards, I believe, created the Confessor race, lineage, I don't know, magic, essentially, which is really cool. I wish he would have gone more into detail. But that didn't come out until book 4, so back to book 3, Dreamwalker. Excuse me. I mentioned this in the last video. I wasn't really interested in his whole storyline, like, at all. And reading through book 3 and 4, I still wasn't. The only thing I was really interested at that time were the Sisters of the Dark and Sisters of the Light. That shit was so cool. I wish they had spent, like, a few more books on that because that was really cool. I was really upset. I'm not exactly sure where it happened, either book 3 or 4, but I was really upset when they basically bombed the chapel or whatever, the castle that the Sisters of Light live in, which is like that dome thing that controls the magic and keeps everyone young. They decided to bomb it because there was so much knowledge and scripture and the scrolls that, you know, foretold prophecies and all of that stuff, and they wouldn't let the Dreamwalker figure it out or, like, read through it through controlling the wizards to be that were formerly under the care of Sisters of the Light, all that stuff, whatever. You know what? Now that I'm on here, I've already said this previously. I'm just so tired of, like, the politics. Like, yeah, I get it. We're a fantasy caste system. There's magic. There's hierarchies. There's kingdoms, and, you know, people with influence. Like, sure, we're gonna dive into politics, but oh my god, am I over it so much? I just want, like, to read fantasy. Like, that is it. I'm so tired. I mean, I know, like, you can't have one without the other. Like, I totally get it, because you introduce, you know, powerful beings with, you know, magic, literal magic. So what does that tell you about, like, how they live and where they're accepted and all that? They live with people that don't have magic. How does that work? So yeah, like, whatever. I just don't like it. I'm so over it. And speaking of being over it, halfway through this book 4, so we've been getting like edged for 4 books that Kaylin and Richard are gonna get married, right? Ever since they visited the Mud People in book 1, they were gonna get married. Never happened until the last chapter in book 4 they got married, which was very, very nice. But where was I going with this? Book 4 marriage. Oh, speaking of being bored, right. So halfway through this book 4, I got super bored and I just got completely over it. And I realized I was like, I'm not really interested in any of the side characters. Yeah, Kara's great actually. I really do like her character in the book and in the TV show, but that's the reason why I'm interested in the book, because I'm trying to see like where she differs. But now, we're completely separate from the TV show. We're already on book 4. I'm about to start book 5 tomorrow, hopefully. But right, I'm not really interested in all of the other characters, and although they're interesting in a sense, like all of those war generals, uninterested. I was barely interested in like the Nathan Ross storyline. I thought that was like super clever and interesting. Thought it was a good way to keep me like intrigued at least, but I realized halfway through the book, like it's just the same BS all over and over and over and over. Like Kaylin and Richard have one goal, get married, and that hasn't happened for 4 freaking books, and there's just one thing after another, which, I wouldn't mind if it was, interesting. It is interesting in a sense, but I'm completely over them having a singular goal and then having everything else like just come, because it doesn't, nothing like, you get me, right? Like it's just, it's infuriating a little bit and it's very tiresome. And I debated so hard whether or not I should finish this book. Is it really, because I was thinking, now that we're on this topic, the reason why I was debating this was because I had seen this video on TikTok of someone who was like reading all of these books, and like, sure, like we're adults, we don't have time to read all day long and every single weekend like all other people, right? But I make it a point at work during my break to read at least one chapter of a book. And I started this series November last year. We're about to reach November again. I haven't finished the series. I'm barely on book 5, which tells me I've only read 4 books in the past, fiscal year. So it's like, this is what I'm doing with my time. This is the free time that I'm allowing myself, and I'm choosing to spend it reading Richard and Kaylin's BS over and over and over again. And speaking of their BS, I need to remember to talk about Shota and their fucking baby and their BS that they just they refuse. But right, I was like, I halfway through the book, I kind of stopped enjoying it and stopped wanting to read. So I was like, why am I even reading this again? Like, I've completely lost interest. Like, it's no longer interesting to me. If I'm being honest right now, I do not care to read the 5th book. I can't remember how many books are in this series, but if it exceeds the 5th, I'm probably gonna stop reading it, because I'm only gonna read the 5th because I already have the book, but I'm most likely gonna stop reading altogether, like this series, because I'm just like, it's done. Like, it's done. And my goal was to, finish this series, do the Mord Sith series and the Confessor series, but it seems like we're gonna be hitting a lot of the same BS if I were to start those series. So I'm thinking of just maturing a little bit and quitting this magic stuff, and then just start to read books that I actually want to read, because I do have other books that I actually want to read, right? Anyways, this is supposed to be a review. Let me get back to the story we left off. So the Dream Walker, book 3. So Sisters of the Light. Verna's totally alive. Nathan, I think I mentioned that. Oh, Anna is still alive with Nathan, right? They're having their own little thing. They're supposed to be together to follow a fork in the prophecy and intentionally create some sort of path. What was that? I have no freaking clue. But there was a purpose for everything. That might be book 2, book 3. Who knows? They get separated. She instead takes Grandpa, which is Zed, to be her companion because she is required to be with the wizard in order to fulfill that fork in the prophecy, right? So if Nathan's out of the picture, she takes, the next person in line or the person closest to her, which was literally Zed. So she collars him. He's the first rule, so he uncollars himself. That might already be in the 4th book, and they kind of start their own separate journey. Meanwhile, Richard thinks Zed is dead for the entire 4th book until the very end in the chapter where they get married. They introduce oh my god, right? So all of this stuff is happening politically, right? Dreamwalker is in the old world moving his little chess pieces to fulfill his prophecy that he's been reading, because he's captured all of these young wizards that were under the care of the Sisters of the Light. Now it's not that they don't exist. They do mention it here and there in the 4th book that they still exist, and there's still a group of them somewhere. I don't know where they're living, right? But somewhere in that town in the old world probably. But young wizards still exist. Dreamwalker has corrupted every single one. He controls all of their brains. Wizards with power to read and I guess have prophecies are being used to see I wouldn't say make, because they only talk about Warren and Nathan as being able to have actual visions and prophecies and all of that and create them. Everyone else, I think they're just, I don't know, being tortured to read them and interpret, if I'm not mistaken. But, he starts this whole little Imperial Army still exists, of course. That's still in the works. That's the whole reason why Richard, basically, once he arrived in Iondrill, which is, I guess, the home base. Yeah, it is. The Midlands. It's a democracy, right? They all meet there. Everyone's murdered. He's now ruling. Ruler of Dahara. Everyone prays to him now. He uses Dark and Raw's magic, which is not magic that he created, but that he abused, I guess, in a sense. So now everyone is loyal to him, which means they can't be corrupted by the Dreamwalker, which is great. But there's that shift going on. It's because I'm trying to remember book 3, but I honestly don't, which tells you what. Yeah. So whatever I get. We'll just do on book 4, which is pretty much it. The only thing that they did different here is they killed off somebody, and they introduced stupid Temple of the Winds. Oh my god. Don't get me started. You're already creating the Dreamwalker, which really did not make much sense. No, it didn't make any sense at all, actually. There is no reason for someone to exist with the power to, enter your dreams and then, but, also, while you're awake, still control your body. I don't know. There's just no reason. I was already upset with that, right? I was like, okay, whatever. If they don't focus on him, which they didn't, actually. He was mentioned a lot, but he hardly made any cameos in the book, right? So, that was okay, I guess. It wasn't that bad. But stupid Temple of the Wind. So apparently, in the maze that is the Wizard's Keep, which is, they describe it as something kind of like a small structure, or not a very large building, but inside there's hundreds and hundreds of yards of corridors and 38 libraries, each 2 mile long. I don't know how that works in the center of the city, right up in a mountain. I guess if it's hidden inside the mountain, but whatever. There's a whole community of wizards that used to live there and read and, do all of that stuff, work with magic, experiment, whatever wizards did. Prior to that, no, during, there also existed a Temple of the Winds, which is now in the book some sort of in between like land or spirit world. No, not spirit world, just like world or place of existence in between the world of the living and the world of the dead, right? But it's more so on the side of the dead because spirits are able to come in and out of there, which is not something they can do in the place of the world of the living, right? So there's that sort of distinction. Apparently this place existed at the top of a mountain. It's similar to like the Wizard's Keep, although it didn't really hold any knowledge. They kind of reference it as like an alternate library for only war wizards, right? Something like that. Although there's multiple points of entry to this place, which is why freaking Sister Amelia was able to do it through the what was it, Betrayer's Hall. Okay, are you kidding me? Like, it was like just so, no offense, ridiculous. I was not a fan. What I was a fan though of, I think when I was telling myself I don't want to read this book anymore, Shoda came and she was all like, oh, like, yeah, I sent freaking, what's her name, Natalie to the Midlands to marry Richard because he's supposed to marry another. That whole thing was incredibly interesting, I'm not gonna lie. And then introducing Defren too, I thought that was also interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't too mad at this book. I was more so mad that even though new characters were introduced, interesting characters, we were still circling around, oh my god, but we're supposed to get married next week. Okay, let's postpone, right? Because let me meet my half-brother, Defren, and then, oh, let's see why did this, like, it was just very self-centered behavior, and even though like they were completely selfless the entire time and being heroes and whatever, it was just very obvious that they cared a little too much about their stupid ass wedding. I used to be a fan of them. Now Kaelin gets on my nerves a little bit. Richard was hardly referenced in this book. Well, I mean, yeah, he was. I'm lying, right? But he wasn't present as much as Kaelin. This was like totally a Kaelin and Kara book. I feel like it was like two besties. Kara was great this book. She was great. She was awesome. She now has subtractive magic, which, I feel like all Mortis should have had in the beginning, but she's the only one of the main four, or three, I should say, or two, I should say, of the main two that has the magic 3. So, where did I leave off? Temple of the Winds. So, right. So, there's just additional magic, additional BS magic. And everything has a rule, of course. And everything has a trap, of course. And everything requires Richard and Kaelin's 100% attention. And basically, I think this was already working out of the prelates, the original prelates' plan to be with the wizard. I think at some point with Zed, they fulfilled like their sort of fork or their purpose and the magic she was trying to achieve, and they were gonna separate and then they got caught, I think. Oh no, they were going to the Jaboko pressure because Nathan gave them that instruction, which, oh my god, that means Nathan knew they were going to get married, which means he knew. Okay, so I just realized something. See, this is the kind of stuff, I would have liked that book more if I had realized this when I had finished reading this, but that's really great. I didn't realize. So, okay, so the entire time, okay. So Nathan was a good guy. Nathan kind of seems to be like an asshole, right? He's a little self-centered, but he's been in chains for what, 3,500 years, something like that. Which is understandable, I guess, right? But he has a good heart, right? And we find that out when he kind of runs off on his own, but not to like be an ass. We know now, or I know now, that literally right now, that he had seen some sort of prophecy. Of course, I don't understand how he would have known any of this, but he gives the instruction to Zed and Brother Anna to head to the Jaboko treasure. That is it. That is the only instruction. So they're like, well, we're not gonna fuck around with Nathan. Like he's probably the most powerful wizard on earth, right? So let's just go ahead and do that. And in between their entire journey to arrive there, which wasn't really that far, they were not in the old world, they were in the new world already. Somewhere, I guess southern Midlands. Mud people are like what, top northeast? Northwest. If I remember the map correctly. It's actually right here. Westland, the boundary, Mud people. Okay, so south. They're southwest. So where's, oh, okay, ours is the one that's north. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so I guess they were pretty far. Okay, whatever. So it would have taken them a while. But, you know, in between their super little journey, they get into all this trouble, which is kind of uninteresting and unrelated to everything. But he basically, you know, he sees this prophecy, he puts things in motion that have to happen. One, being like a double agent for the Dreamwalker. Or not a double agent, just a liar, you know? But, yeah, I'm not interested in reading this anymore. I feel like I have more bad things than good things to say. And because I didn't write anything down, all of these thoughts are just resurfacing as I go, and you know, it's just there comes a point where you just don't want to read the stupid books anymore. Also, freaking the Gar, what was his name? Gratch, he was not referenced in this book. Like, yeah, he found his little girlfriend, he had babies, he saw Richard said goodbye, but they had a whole book to at least, like, you know, mention, like, oh, you know, on his way to the Temple of the Winds, Richard saw, like, a family of Gars flying, or, you know, like anything, really, to satisfy the thought that I had here. Because Gratch, really, he was an awesome character. I really enjoyed that whole storyline. And the growth. He got his little flies and everything. Oh, that's so good. But yeah, let's see, let's go back. So yeah, I mean, basically this was like a Nathan and Kaylin book. Oh yeah, so, right, so back to the Temple of the Winds, there's the thing called the Betrayer Hall, which is one point of entrance to the building. In order to enter, you have to betray anyone, really. You just have to do it, which is a little weird that they chose a Sister of the Dark to betray the Keeper in order to enter. Like, Kaylin gained entry to the Temple of the Winds at the end of the book by betraying Richard, which they are powerful people, but it seems like Emilia had to do so much, literally betray the Keeper of the Underworld, which I can't remember what she did exactly. I think maybe like, I think what they said, she reverted back to the Keeper and praying to him. No. What did she do? She did something. She betrayed the Keeper by what? She did it by... it wasn't devoting herself to the creator, because I don't think it's that easy. Unless it is, maybe that's how she did it, but I feel like that was a little grand just to gain entry. Like, really, anyone. Oh, she had to have subtractive, because only Richard entered. Well, I mean, Kaylin could have entered too, right? But only Richard. Okay, yeah, right. So, yeah, okay, yeah. So people with subtractive magic, that really only leaves Richard and the Sisters of the Dark that, stole their subtractive. Okay, yeah. It just took a while. That makes sense. So they're really kind of only limited in, doing all of that stuff. Anyways, she enters a hall to steal a book called, what was it? It was The Trials of the Winds or something like that. I can't remember. Basically, there's magic in this book that tells you, I guess, how to destroy a world, or with like specific instructions on how to initiate like the end of the world, right? Something like that. And in doing that, it's a book that I guess the Dreamwalker specifically wanted, or that needed to get, or maybe he was just kind of like, grab whatever you need or whatever you see and then bring it back and we'll work with it. But in that book, there was magic to start like the plague, which is, I guess, I mean, I don't want to say the bubonic plague or the black plague, but it was just a plague. I don't think it was, it wasn't specific or referencing anything specific, I don't think, because you got it by touch and like and then they were saying that by breathing, and they manifested through like weird little, I don't know, like fleshy tokens. I don't know why they called it a token. Obviously it was circular, and I'm assuming black and stuff, like dead cells and like built up skin and whatever. Right. So she, in doing that, in opening that book and I guess reading it and initiating all that magic, she herself walked throughout the Midlands, like literally walked or traveled to spread this herself. So I guess she had it in her. She never died of it though. She just had it, and that's how she spread it, targeting children specifically. And then it just kind of like, wildfires across the Midlands. Because of all of that, the spirits in general, no, Mud People spirits, Kaylin's granddad, Mud People's side, right? Yeah, grandfather's Mud People's side, told her that there has been magic unleashed and stolen specifically from the Temple of the Winds. And she's given like this sort of weird vision at that hut. You have to look a frog. She has her hallucinations. She talks to people, the spirits, They tell her what to do. There's instructions. Then Shota comes and she's like, oh yeah, well, she doesn't come. She sends a message. Shota doesn't send a message. Kaylin goes over there in a fit of rage because Natalie is supposed to marry Richard, right? Something like that. Now that we're on that topic, but you see how uninteresting this stuff kind of is. But now that I'm here, the Slith I thought was fantastic. I thought of any of the things that these stupid, I don't want to say people, but that this world offers, I accept the creation of the Slith, because they provide the backstory, right? They provide enough backstory to say that this was an invention, much like the Confessor race, This was an invention of these powerful wizards that didn't want to really control anything, more so. Well, I mean, they did it specifically for certain reasons, right? But they did it. How do I say it? Like to be petty, Like she was a prostitute, and then she was somehow involved, in those trials, right? There was some sort of, so I don't know if they went into detail or I just lost the detail, but, there was some sort of trial. They were angry with her. They didn't want her to talk in the trial, so they removed her ability to be human and just said, like, oh, you'll do only as I say as a wizard with subtractive magic, and you'll follow my rules only. Now you're not human, now you're like a meta being, and you do what I say always. Well, in true prostitute fashion, anyone with, gets to use me. So he wasn't specific in saying me only. I think, was it Ricker, a specific wizard? He just said someone with my kind of magic, which he was a war wizard, I guess. Yeah, subtractor, whatever. So that means what now? That means multiple people can use this thing to literally travel in under a day, I think, is kind of the time lapse that they gave. So Kaylin's able to use this live. The Sisters of the Dark, of course. Richard, of course. Anyone with subtractive magic, even a tinge. So because of that, she is obviously, when she had been awakened by Richard in desperation to get somewhere to Kaylin fast, blah, 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 symbiotes. He keeps her awake, which means, of course, other people start using her, which we find out that a young wizard and Sister Emilia use her to travel and spread the plague. So that's what was going on. To use her, you have to breathe her. She's like some sort of like metallic silver like liquid that you like breathe in, and she's like weird and like whatever. Basically, only those people can use it. If you try to breathe, if anyone else tries to breathe it in, you like instantly die, which we saw with Defrin, who was kind of like manipulated into doing it, which is fine because it was kind of crazy. There was one thing in this book that I thought was really weird, and I don't know if it was resolved. I don't know if I'm smart enough to resolve this. I don't know if I didn't read enough between the lines, but someone was killing prostitutes in the city once Defrin arrived. So obviously we all thought it was Defrin when we were reading it, because it's like, okay, he's the new guy, he's the good looking one, and he's killing prostitutes and like stabbing them in, or like, right, because he had the aura magic, or knowledge of the aura, so he was like fucking around with all that shit and like charming people and then like killing them, right? So there was one specific detail where they said that he stabbed one of the prostitutes somewhere in like the lower lumbar area in the spine, where like you get paralyzed when you like dislocate or sever that specific nerve. Right, so that was kind of described, I think, twice, when he killed two people. So there's been like this killing of prostitutes going around, and then they end up someone ends up figuring out that it was, what's his name? That guy from, that town, city, kingdom, that was just staying there. Basically, they blame it on him and they execute him because he tried to kill Kaylin, which I think we find out that he was under the, no, I don't think they specified, actually. He just wanted to kill Kaylin, apparently, for some reason, but I think, it was a Dreamwalker, doing all that, personally, right? Because they hadn't sworn their oath to the Daharan Empire, which means they were still freestanding, which means they hadn't given their, like, sworn oath to like, Richard, so I guess they were still up for, like, influence. Which now makes sense that I'm saying it out loud, that's what happened. But basically, they're all like, oh my god, he tried to kill Kaylin. Like, he's the one who's been killing all those prostitutes. Like, it was him. Huh? Like, why would we assume that, Like, that was a little weird. But I thought it was weird, and it was, like, resolved, and then there were no other killings. But Defrin, we find out at the end of the book that he was doing that same BS to like other people. That same sort of like killing style where you like stab, which he literally did to Kaylin. When I read that, I was like, wait, so that means that other guy that they murdered for those crimes was not the guy. It was literally different this whole time. Which makes sense because, his people came and called him crazy and all that stuff. But I thought that was a little weird that no one addressed it. Like, Kaylin didn't think... Well, of course she was in danger, right? But she was like, being so selfless and, omnipotent. She should have been like, oh my god, wait. Like, I know I'm in the brink of death, but like he just stabbed me in the back. Like, didn't he do that to the prostitutes? Wait a minute. Oh, I killed the wrong guy. You were the guy, right? Like, just something like that should have been discussed. I feel like that didn't really happen. I thought that was a little weird, but basically there's this whole betrayal. Kaylin has sex with Richard, thinking it was Defrin, and Richard was so hurt by that's what gained his entry to the Temple of Winds, because he felt betrayed by Kaylin by her having sex with Richard, thinking it was different, right? And I guess, although I understand his sadness, I feel like he kind of blew it away out of proportion, because no harm, no foul, technically. And then also super random, Kara intentionally switching, the couples, because she was subconsciously sworn to be a sister to Kaylin, that she was all like, I cannot allow the consummation of these marriages to be fulfilled, which means they weren't fucking married. That was a one requirement by the spirits. One, get married. Two, have sex with your partner, and then you can go in. But I guess that wasn't really required for the marriage. What was required was the betrayal, which I guess was planned by the spirits. I don't know, because, well, no, yeah, it would have been right, because Richard would have been betrayed either way. He probably would have expected, what I was thinking, I was like, okay, nothing's ever going to happen, doors aren't going to open, because one, Richard's going to refuse it, and two, Kaylin's going to refuse it. Well, neither did. Now we know, Richard was also like, unfaithful, kind of, because he also thought, he thought he was with Natalie the whole time. And Natalie was going off on Defrin, being a little slut, which, I'm a little upset, that we didn't get to see her POV. Not for the nastiness, but for the craziness, because we already know how crazy that chick is. She's very foul to Kaylin, but all in all, I'm gonna stop already, not because, well, yeah, I've run out of things to say, but also mostly I'm just uninterested at this point. Marlin was the wizard's name. I just saw that. See, look, like, okay, no, it said an N, they were alright, but like this right here. Oh, Clarissa, I didn't talk about Clarissa. Clarissa was good, she was nice. She ended up dying, yeah, which, she was kind of, sorry, Nathan. But, Kaylin, let's see. Mud People, yeah, I was here, Mud Professor. I mean, overall, this book was okay, I hated the whole Temple of the Winds thing. And I have the book right there. Soul of Fire? Is that? Yeah, The Soul of Fire is the next book. And all I can say is, I already know there's going to be some BS. One, because Richard and Kaylin did actually finally get married, right? I mentioned that earlier. They did get married. It was official, I think. It was official. Shota basically said, be married, don't have sex. If you do have sex, wear this necklace, and it'll keep you infertile, and you won't have kids. And you want to know what these freaking people said. They were all like, Shota, like, you've told us a million times that our baby's going to be a male confessor, which is like super evil and, like very dangerous for the world. And I understand, but you need to stay away from us. Like, we're going to do what we want at the end of the day, And from day one, Shota's been like, I've been against this because of your exact attitude for this. Like, you finally have what you wanted. Be together, have sex, be married. That's literally what they've been bitching about for 4 fucking books, right? That's literally what they've been bitching about. And all Kaylin could do, it was like, oh my god, Shota ruined my wedding by saying, like, all of that stuff. Like, again, she ruined it again. Like, hello? Like, oh, like, it has to click. Do not have fucking kids. Like, you already have your husband. You already fulfilled, like, your wish to being loved and to being with someone who loves you back and having, like, a real connection and not being forced into marriage and forced into reproducing. She is the last confessor, so she is gonna have to reproduce. But like her things, like I want it to be with the person that, okay, you can have that. Except you can't because you have been told time and time and time again, you will have a male confessor. So, that being said, Soul of Fire, I can already see some wicked BS forming around that, around that idea. And I am not interested. But I am going to read the fifth book, so we'll see what happens. I don't know. This book, 7 out of 10. This book I don't remember, unfortunately. Blood of the Fold, yeah. Wait, is this the one where Kaylin... Valley of the Lost. Is that what happened here? I thought that was book 2. The Stone of Tears. Yeah, that was the Valley of the Lost. Okay. Right. So yeah, that's it for my discussion today. I did want to say, now that I was reading real quick, I thought the ending was, of course, wrapped up way too quickly. Everything fit into place. What a coincidence, right? Everything was right. Everything was this. Everything was that. There was no cliffhanger. There was nothing. So how is the other book gonna start? I don't even know, honestly. I mean, they're definitely gonna start, at the Mud People Village, but it was just. I mean, now Kara has subtractive magic, which tells me she's gonna have some sort of other magic in the next book. But Mord Sith are basically extinct at this point. Like, Richard is not gonna train more little girls to be Mord Sith, so that shit's gonna die with him. Which, the way they're, going on right now, they're all gonna die pretty freaking soon, and then they're just gonna be, like, non-existent, and then that's it. That's gonna be the Mord Sith. I think this book told me, they were created by Dark and Raw. So they're brand new, these Mord Sith thingies. The Agios, I don't know how they're made, but magic, whatever. That's kind of it. My ideas for the next book, Baby, Kara having magic, hopefully some cool stuff with the Sisters of the Light, although they're all like pretty much disbanded. Verna's with Warren doing Lord knows what. I don't even know if he's still alive. Oh, he is still alive. Yeah, Nathan fixed him. Anna, what is she gonna do? Anna, I have no idea. There's no more, Sisters of the Light compound. So what is she gonna do? Age, just live the rest of her life, I guess. Probably just more BS political stuff. I mean, the Dreamwalker is still alive. So maybe none of this has actually ended and it's just the beginning. I guess we'll see. I don't know. I'm over 15 minutes. My bad. But that's it. Bye.